Now, Executive Suites with WPRI.com reporter Ted Nisi.
Welcome to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nisi, and today we're going to talk later on in the show about a favorite topic of many people out there, I'm sure, food, with Chef Karl Guggenmos. He started a new consulting firm after a long history at Johnson & Wales. We're going to talk about what he's up to there, as well as some of his take on the food economy in Rhode Island. But first, very glad to be joined by Tom Tanury. He is the chairman of Tanury Industries, a manufacturer up in Lincoln. Been around quite a number of years, 70 years this year, actually.
70 years.
Tom, thanks for being here. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So let's start off. Tanury Industries, you do coatings, electroplating, but those words might be a little confusing to people at home. So explain, if you would, in layman's terms, what your business is at Tanury.
Probably the easiest way is to think about all the things you see every day. It could be jewelry, could be bathroom fixtures, door hardware, writing instruments, eyeglass frames, just common everyday items that are coated. Either coated with gold, silver, rhodium, palladium, all precious metals, sometimes nickel, sometimes copper. But primarily we're in the electroplating business, and we finish a whole array of different goods.
So how does it work? Do they send you the product uncoated, and then you take like Zippo lighters, I think of, which I know you guys do. You get the lighters without any coating on them, then you get that last step and coat them when they get to your place?
Exactly. So it's kind of like the dry cleaner. You take your clothes in, right? Have your clothes clean, and then send it back to the owner. So we don't manufacture anything. We're strictly a service company. Our customers send us product in, we make it look good and send it back to them.
Now, how do you have the space? You must have a ton of different coatings you have to do, right? And all specified to the different types of products?
Right. We probably have maybe 100 different coatings that we do, depending on the application, the product line. For example, we might have 8 or 10 different colors of gold. You could have 14 karat gold, 18 karat, 24 karat, rose gold, champagne gold, antique gold. So there's all different types of finishes. So in each category, you could break it down to many different facets of what that finish may be. We also do PVD coating, which is physical vapor deposition, which is probably
I believe you guys came up with that, right?
Well, we were one of the pioneers.
Yeah.
PVD's been around for a long time, but we developed it more for decorative finishes. It's been around for a long time on windows. You see windows that are gold colored, or copper colored, or eyeglass frames that have a coating on them. That would be PVD. What we did was we took it another level, and we brought it more to the decorative side of the world. So we do a lot of applications where we're coloring for certainly colors that you cannot get in wet chemistry electroplating, but it has great wear resistance and great corrosion resistance. So folks that are looking for, let's say, gold that doesn't wear off, PVD could be your answer.
They come to you guys
certain items.
On certain items. And I mentioned lighters because I think it's a fun example to people to think of, but you do some much bigger work too, like private jets, right? You've been doing a lot of that?
We have about, getting close to 16, 17 years. We've been in the aviation business, non-commercial, strictly private. And we're an OEM supplier to Gulfstream, Falcon Jet, Dassault Falcon Jet. We do a lot of what we call VVIP or VIP jets, which would be larger jets like 747s or 777s. The interior of those planes are like palaces.
Yeah, I've seen some pictures of them.
Yeah, and if they want them finished in gold or some exotic finish, we're the company to go to. So we've been expanding. So it's been a good business. It's been just an extension of our core business. Keep in mind, we come from the jewelry industry.
Right. Well, and I want to ask you about this, and let's go to that point, because as I said, 70 years. Your father was the founder of the company, along with his brothers.
My father and 3 of his brothers.
So walk us through how the company got its start. It was in South Providence originally, and how to grow to what it is now. Go on all day, probably, right?
How much time do we have?
Yeah, exactly.
So, it was an old line plating company for jewelry. 99% of the business was jewelry. Today, probably 30 or 35% of the business is jewelry, although we still do an awful lot of jewelry. It's not a lesser number because we're doing less jewelry, it's just the company's much larger today. And the 3 key ingredients to me are always people, of course, technology, and diversification. So as we grew, I recognized that there are 3 key elements that we had to focus on. So we started out in jewelry. It was my dad and his brothers, and I got involved in the company, believe it or not, 46 years ago.
Hard to believe, I bet.
I know. 46 long, wonderful years. And so it's been a long time. And, we've just diversified. We tried to advance technology as much as we possibly could, and, of course, develop people. without an educated workforce and highly skilled people and an unbelievably talented executive team, we couldn't do it.
So as I was reading up on the history of the company, I found it interesting. We think of the Rhode Island jewelry industry having declined a lot, or at least shrunk a lot smaller than it used to be. And your company was being held up 30 years ago already as one that was diversifying, taking what it had learned in the jewelry industry and really bringing it out. How'd you guys get ahead of the curve on that?
I'm often asked that question. Back in the days when we had yellow pages, I used to do this. I used to go through the yellow pages and count all the electroplating companies that were in the Providence area. So we could say 25-mile radius of Providence, getting into Attleboro, close by Massachusetts. There were over 125 electroplating companies that did exactly what I did or do. And they were much larger. We were just a small little shop in South Providence. And that was in the 70s. And as we get closer and closer, to the turn of the century and years went by, I kind of saw that I couldn't grow this business just doing jewelry. More and more jewelry was going overseas. A lot of the big companies, icon companies, were going away. And I said, either diversify or you're going to be out of business. So if there were 125 then, I don't know, I haven't looked, but I'm going to guess and say there's probably only a dozen.
Wow.
Maybe 20, but some being very, very small. By far, we're the largest. So we came from being one of the smallest companies, and as I just mentioned, probably the key reasons why we're able to survive was diversification, training, educating workforce, and staying ahead of technology.
R&D.
All the time. We never stop with R&D, every day. Always trying to bring something new to our customer base, giving them new ideas, new creative finishes, new ways of doing things, cost-effective methods, and it's just how we grew the business.
All right, we're going to take a break. We come back, we're going to talk more with Tom Tanury about how the business looks today at Tanury Industries and what he thinks Rhode Island leaders might be able to do to fix a business climate here. Stick with us on Executive Suite. Welcome back to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nisi, and later on the show we're going to talk about the business of food with Chef Karl Guggenmos, who knows that business very well. He started a new consulting firm there. But right now we're talking to Tom Tanury. He is the chairman of Tanury Industries, which is has its roots in plating for jewelry, but now they do all sorts of different things from planes to lighters. We were talking about it earlier, and we're going to keep talking about that. I love stories, Tom, of people who are very successful now, but who remember when they've gone through times where they were challenged. And you've told the story in the past of 1978, when you were pretty young and just getting into the business and experienced a couple of different challenges at once. Tell that story and how you got through it.
Oh my God. So we were originally in South Providence and decided that in order for me to expand the business, I had to move and get into a new facility. And we moved to Lincoln, Rhode Island, in 1978, and did it on a wing and a prayer. I was the carpenter, the plumber, the electrician, the plater, the truck driver, fulfilling as many roles as I could, along with help, with the rest of my team. But we were a very small company. I think we had 20 or 25 employees at the time when we made the move. And we finally made the move over the weekend, and the next weekend was the blizzard of '78. And we were shut down for a week. So that was pretty devastating. And then we lost a major customer immediately after that. And it was, just diversity. And
yeah, what were you thinking, though? You must have been...
I was thinking, how am I going to pull this off?
Yeah.
This is not going to be easy.
Yeah.
But, we survived. We worked at it. We were pretty much consumed by one company. Not totally, but pretty good chunk of my capacity was consumed by that one company. There were other companies that I would have liked to have done business with, but I couldn't. So as soon as I lost that one company, I just immediately went all over Rhode Island, finding business, and we were able to pull our way out of it.
And when we think about manufacturing, people think it's all disappeared. It's a myth, but people think all around manufacturing disappeared to China or somewhere, which companies like yours show that's not the case. But what do you think is the difference between companies like yours, and maybe you've said it with diversification and stuff, but companies like yours that have managed to survive, continue doing industrial processes in Rhode Island, versus the many others that have shut down, that have been able to make it here?
I think one of the big things was staying the course with the mantra was always quality. I wanted to maintain that, but there were a lot of companies that were just producing volume, mass producing low-end jewelry at the time, and my niche was really going to the high-end market. and trying to focus on real high-end product and providing customers with good quality, good service, and good technology, as I mentioned. So I think those are key ingredients. Diversification, of course, looking for new products that we could plate, new companies, new things. Today, as I mentioned earlier, we were almost high 90 percentile of jewelry, and today we're probably in the 35%, 30% range, and now we're in probably 30 different markets. So even though one or two may slow down, maybe two or three pick up. So we kind of even it out a little bit, where we don't have this non-seasonal.
Yeah.
At one point it was a very seasonal business. We're non-seasonal. We're busy all the time.
And geography too, right? You've really diversified your markets that you go into. I'd say royal families in other countries, right? Are one of your
they're
clientele.
not my best friends, but we're working on that. It's a long, drawn-out process. I've been traveling to Dubai and Abu Dhabi and doing trade shows. I think I've done 6 or 8 trade shows. I'm losing count. Be doing one again this fall.
A lot of private jets out there.
A lot of private jets, but a lot of metal finishing in palaces, buildings. Right now we're spec'd on a hotel, a palace, and waiting on a 747.
Wow.
So this is all business that we're hoping is going to come. No guarantees, but we're working on it. It's a long, drawn-out process. I started this 6-7 years ago. The World Trade Center at Bryant University was very helpful. The STEP program was helpful because at the very beginning I didn't know what to do.
Sure.
I went by myself. I figured it out. Went there alone and just started walking, and came across trade shows, and now we go all the time. We have friends there. We have a rep there. We have a rep in Europe, and it's happening. But it's a very long, expensive, drawn-out process.
So one last question before we have to go to a break and finish up here. But I mentioned it before. I'm curious, when you look around Rhode Island, you've been in business in Rhode Island for many, many years. Is there anything you see and you say, I wish state leaders, local leaders, they'd work on this specific thing? I think that'd be a big boost to the economy. Or what do you look for as a businessman?
Well, it's interesting because I don't look to the state for a lot. Even though I'm expanding, we're a growing company. We're hiring people. We're just going to be about 200 people right now. We've just put additions on our building. We're constantly buying equipment, and I don't look to the state. And the reason why I don't is because it's just too complicated. It's too cumbersome to try and pursue it. Thank God we can do it on our own. From the state perspective, it's just too much over-regulation. It's just too much burden on small business. And of course we won't get into all the nuances of why and how it's so expensive to do business in Rhode Island, but it is. So you just have to overcome it.
And
this is the real world.
Have you seen it getting better or worse over the years? Or
I don't see any difference.
No change, really,
because they're minuscule. There's nothing that's life-altering or life-changing. Everything that does happen is like baby steps. But there's nothing that's monumental. Not for existing businesses in Rhode Island. Not for small manufacturers. We were like the stepchild. And because everybody had the notion that manufacturing is just going to go away. It will be a service economy. Well, that didn't happen, and manufacturing's coming back. I see it in my customer base that more and more companies said, I'm tired of going overseas, we're coming back to the States. And people want stuff made in the United States.
So you're hopeful now?
Yeah, I'm hopeful.
That's right, and you got to be in business, right?
I got to be.
All right, Tom Tanury, chairman of Tanury Industries up in Lincoln. Thank you so much for joining me. Don't go away. Coming up next, we're going to talk to Chef Karl Guggenmos about his new culinary consulting firm and what's going on with the food economy in Rhode Island. Stick with us on Executive Suite. Welcome back to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nisi, and we are now very pleased to be joined by Karl Guggenmos. He is a chef. He is also Dean Emeritus at Johnson Wales University, where he taught for a number of years, known so well for their culinary expertise. And he's now founded a consulting firm called Culinary Solutions International. Karl, thank you for joining me.
Well, thank you for inviting me. Pleasure being here.
So first, I always like to hear someone's backstory. You've devoted your life to food and cooking and being a chef and everything. You're from Germany, I believe,
That's
right?
correct.
Grew up
Yep.
there. How did you first become interested in this? How did this become your passion?
Well, in my days when I was younger, there weren't a lot of choices in terms of what you're going to do. I was 14 and had to make a decision what kind of craft or trade you're going to go into. I had a baking apprenticeship, and that fell apart because the owner passed away. So I was able to get an apprenticeship in one of the older hotels #1 hotel in my hometown, Augsburg, and has a lot of history. It goes back into the Middle Ages, the building, and I was able to do a 5-year apprenticeship program there, front of the house and back of the house.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an incredible experience, the typical old-fashioned way. You know, the motivation tool of our chef was the braising fork.
Do you still ever think back to those days, learning in the where you originally were?
Some of the good things I try to remember, the bad things I try
to
block
get past
out.
those. Very
We certainly
like a lot
don't
of
do
us.
that anymore today.
Yeah. So you've got this, as I mentioned, new consulting firm, Culinary Solutions International, just announced not too long ago that you were kicking this off. What's the idea there? What do you see in the market that you're going to provide?
Well, I spent 52 years in this industry, and I've seen all the ins and outs of the industry and the tremendous need for good consulting services to the industry as a whole. So we have a number of, since it's a vast experience, we can provide great services to the industry as a whole, from designing kitchens, from designing curriculum. We're working on a project in Saudi Arabia where they are building a theme park in Medina, and where I'm overseeing the consulting for the culinary services
Cool.
there. A school in Germany, it's in south of Berlin. Places here with Snap Chef, we're doing some work in local training and local development. And also some pioneering work in the area of culinary medicine, where I have started with Johnson Wales a program called Culinary Medicine. There's a Gold Ring Center at Tulane University, where I designed their facilities, and we're expanding out on that.
And talk a little, it's very interesting, culinary medicine. I was reading a little about it in some of the interviews you've given in the past on it. What is culinary medicine? What's the idea there?
It's very unique. We at Johnson Wales have the culinary nutrition program. And while I was still the dean, I always thought, how can we expand it? What's the next step? And it so happened that out of the blue, I got a call from the dean of the medical school of Tulane, and he told me that as a dean of the medical school, he's very progressive and visionary, and he feels that with so many nutrition-related illnesses, the medical professionals need to be better equipped. And he wanted to create a program for the medical students to teach them how to cook, teach them about ingredients, teach them about the relationship of ingredients in medicine and how it's beneficial to them. And we started a program. I designed the facility. Students are coming up here to do an internship at the Johnson Wales, and vice versa. And it's been quite successful. We have done seminars in Singapore. We have done seminars here across the country as well, and we're going to expand on that quite dramatically.
And another thing I know you're working on and looking at Culinary Solutions, probably dear to your heart as an educator as well, is the pipeline, the workforce pipeline in the food economy, because we hear about it all the time in manufacturing and engineering, places like that. They wonder if they're going to have enough workers going forward. But you see an issue developing in the culinary world too, right?
There's a big issue, and it's worldwide. It's not just here, and that is finding, cooking has to do not only with just skills or a job. You have to have passion for what you do. It's still long hours. You still work at night times, weekends, holidays, and it gets harder and harder to find the people that have that passion. And while I was teaching, I always tried to instill that passion to the young people. But if you don't have the basic skills that go along with that, culinary is about the craft, it's about the art, it's about the science, and it's about management and leadership. And goes in a circle. I have the steering wheel. I always show that you can take that and steer it any way you want. But to find the people that love the craft and the art becomes more and more difficult. And that's something that we try to do with Snap Chef, the relationship.
Which is a culinary staffing company that you're working with. Yeah.
Which is not just a staffing company. That's why I fell in love with the program, with the company, because Todd, the CEO, is dedicated to training and providing skills, lifelong skills for people going into that industry. You can't bypass the craft. You have to, and it's life skills too, showing up on time, being dressed professionally, communicating properly, and speaking complete sentences.
Which I like as an interviewer,
you know,
yeah.
it's and knowing how to sit at a dining room. A lot of the young people, and I was appalled at Johnson Wales sometimes when I was teaching people coming in and telling me that they never had a meal at a table at home.
Oh my goodness.
And it's really scary.
Yeah.
That's a real need for training and then education as well.
We're talking to Chef Karl Guggenmos, his new consulting firm, Culinary Solutions International. Karl, I just wanted to ask you about being in Johnson Wales. You've had a front row seat to all this talk about the potential for the food economy in Rhode Island. Right. Restaurants, food manufacturers, I think of Daniele up in Burrillville, places
Right.
like that. What do you think? Do you see potential there as a growth area for Rhode Island?
Oh yeah, there's tremendous potential. I think Rhode Island is very positively positioned as a real upsurgence of great farming. You can buy some really good agricultural products, vegetables, fruits, and also livestock. Great farming as well. Some great beef growers and cattle growers, and also pig farming and other chicken farming. All that industry is growing, and that's really the key ingredient to a successful restaurant. We want to go back to natural ingredients. And Rhode Island and New England has a great food culture, and you know, we just have to get back into that and make it the way it used to be. I love true ethnic food that is not convoluted with a fusion cooking.
Yeah.
You know, I'll take some Asian impact and some of this. That to me, and I'm probably old-fashioned, but I want to get back to what is Rhode Island cooking, and we need to figure that out. I do like to see a few other restaurants, some German restaurant. I don't see.
Yeah, me.
I love German food, but I know there's not a large German population.
I get some good sausage and everything.
Exactly.
It would be delicious. You'll have people watching today who love to cook, and they say, "Oh, Ted, you have a chef. You've got to ask him. Is there any basic advice you give to friends, to family, when they're trying to get their skills better in the kitchen? What do you recommend?"
Well, the first thing is learn the ingredients. Taste fresh ingredients. If you have fresh ingredients, that's half the battle. And then you got to learn your cooking methods. If you want to roast, figure out how roasting is done. If you want to steam, figure out how steaming is done. And then you need great knives, and you need a good oven. It's really not complicated, but you need to know the basics, a combination of good ingredients, good equipment, and a good kitchen.
Only about 20 seconds left. What is your favorite food?
That's very difficult to say. I love I like clam chowder from Rhode Island, but I also love Middle Eastern food, and of course my own German food, and I love Asian food, primarily Vietnamese.
So you love everything. That's the right way to do it. Chef Karl Guggenmos, thank you so much for joining me, and thank you for joining us this week on Executive Suite. If you missed any of this episode, you can catch it all on WPRI.com or on iTunes as a podcast. See you next week.